Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to start a new series reading vlog, and this one is quite exciting because it is for the Rainwild Chronicles by Hobb. This is the fourth series in the realm of the Elderlings, so I have read quite a few books already, and I am very intrigued but also a little bit worried going into this series. Now, originally when I started reading the realm of the Elderlings, I thought that the life ship traders and the Rainwild Chronicles series sounded way more interesting than the Fitz storyline. However, since I started reading the books, I have different feelings, and I know that Rainwild Chronicles usually is rated the lowest in the realm of the Elderlings, and it's also 4 books because I think the last book just got so long they split it up. So there is a lot here that makes me a little bit hesitant to feel a lot of excitement. At the same time, Hobb is the queen of fantasy and I trust her completely. So I still think that, compared to other fantasy books, this will be way above average. And I am intrigued to learn more about the dragons, about all of, what happened and all of that. So I am excited and worried. Now, I will listen to the audiobooks, and I gotta be honest with you. I listened to Life Ship Traders by Anne Flosnick, and it was awful. Those are the worst audiobooks ever. And I wanted to do the Rainwild Chronicles with a different narrator. The thing is that then it is like literally different narrators for every book, and I cannot do that. I cannot. It will hinder my enjoyment, and I don't like that. So I will do Anne Flosnick again, and I think it is a crime against humanity and against Hobb that these audiobooks have not been updated with a good narrator, because we all know that Realm of the Elderlings is very relevant in fantasy circles, and we do love good audiobooks. So what is the holdup? But I will suffer through that because I have listened to all of these books on audio and I don't want to now switch it up. So Anne Flosnick it is. It's gonna be interesting. Apart from that, I do have complete reading vlogs for Life Ship Traders as well as the Tournament series, which I will link down below if you want to see those vlogs as well. And I also did a reading vlog for the first Farseer book. However, I did not one for the whole Farseer trilogy. So unfortunately, my little list of videos is a bit incomplete in that sense, but you can go and watch all of them if you enjoy hearing me talk about the Realm of the Elderlings. And now I think without much further ado, we should start reading these books. As there are 4, this video is probably going to be a little bit long, and I would like to say I'm sorry, but I'm actually not, because it's also a long series, and if I have to read a lot, you get to watch a lot. So that's our deal. The way this works is that I will always update you when I'm halfway through a book and then when I have finished a book, and that way we will read this series together. I also might have some very specific spoiler parts, but overall this video will be spoiler free, and whenever I talk about spoilers I will warn you and mark it in the chapters, so you will be safe to watch this if you have not read the books. So I would say, let's go read. So I'm now halfway through Dragon Keeper, and it is time for a first update. Now, the thing is that this first half of the book was very much the introduction into what is going to go on in the book. Now, if you read the back of the book, a lot what is told there you will not actually really see in the first half of the book. So I wouldn't recommend reading the back of the book. We are following mainly 2 main characters, Thymara and Alice. Thymara lives in the Rainwilds, and she is quite heavily marked to the point where her family was supposed to give her up at birth because she wasn't seen as someone who should be alive. However, her father refused to do that because he very much wanted a child, and the family hadn't had any luck with that so far, so he goes back and he gets Thymara to keep her and see her grow. So Thymara Thaimara is very much on the outside of her society. She isn't really accepted. A lot of people look at her and are disgusted. So it is a very hard life that she's leading, but she's also very capable because her father took her hunting and gathering, and so she knows how to make her own way in this world. Now, there is suddenly this opportunity that Thaimara could work with the dragons, and because she doesn't really know what else to do, she signs up for it. On the other hand, we have Alice. Alice is a well-off daughter in Bingtown. It is expected that she marries someone. Sorry for the cat. And so at the beginning of the book, she considers herself to be kind of an old maid. She doesn't really think that she will actually end up finding a husband. But there is one person who has been courting her, a man called Hest. Alice doesn't really understand why he's doing it because he is very rich and he could have basically anyone. And so she's like, why is this man not giving up on me? I love that we're catching this on camera right now. I love that so much. She's never done that while I was filming before. Like, she likes going in there, but not when I'm filming. She doesn't like it when I'm filming, so I'm very happy we caught that. Okay. So in the end, Alice ends up marrying the man. He does kind of give her a reason why he wants to marry her, and it's not for love and it's not romantic. So she still accepts that. However, he doesn't give her the whole reason, and the whole reason has a lot to do with his secretary. So we do have confirmed gays in this book, and so the marriage isn't very happy, and Alice is very much interested in the dragons and in Elderlings, and so she basically forces the husband to finance her when she goes to visit the dragons in the Rain Wilds. And at this point in time, that's where I'm at the 50% mark. So as I said, don't look too much at the synopsis yet, or it will be very, very boring. Now, in general Robin Hobb fashion, a lot of what's going on in the first half of this book isn't really great. Like, we see our characters who are trying to live their lives, but it's like not very easy for them. As I said, Thaimara has this issue of being marked, and Alice is just not a very attractive woman. And then she's also into research, which is not seen as something very desirable in a woman in this very conservative Bingtown society. And so both of these women have to kind of fight for what they want, but it's not made easy for them at all. We do also get some other characters, and we are starting to see how the perspectives will come together now at the halfway point, but I don't want to go into too much about them. We do have a captain of a very small life ship that can traverse between Jahork, the city in the Rain Wilds that is well known, and then where the dragons are. And so he will have some part to play, and I'm not quite sure yet what it will be because, yeah, interesting things are happening there. And we also get the perspective of one dragon in particular that I think we will start to see more of. But I don't want to talk too much about the dragons because it's a little bit difficult in this series. However, these dragons, they are not quite what people thought dragons would be, and so they are struggling as well. The dragons in this world are very fascinating creatures. I think that the whole idea about the memory thing with the dragons is very, very cool. Now, what I do struggle with a little bit is that they're still very much portrayed as animals, and I just feel like that doesn't make a lot of sense for me with the way that their brains and their memories work. And so I would really like to see more dragon culture, like in Life Ship. I have been very much annoyed with one of the characters, just the whole attitude. And so I'm intrigued to see how things will develop now in Rainwild. But I also fear that this portrayal of dragons is just not quite for me because of the way they are made to think of the world. I mean, just with their capabilities, you would think that they're smarter and more cultured than humans, but then they're kind of not, and that is confusing to me. So we will see how all of that progresses. This first half of the book has a lot of ableist language, and it is at times very hard to read. I'm not gonna lie, I struggled quite a bit with this first half. I am in a way kind of forcing myself to continue because I know that Robin Hobb will do something with this that I will end up enjoying. But the first half was a bit of a rough read because we have the sexism, we have the ableism, and just overall people can be very close-minded, especially in Bingtown, but then also all over this world. So we'll see how that will continue. We definitely already have a character that we might grow to love to hate. So I'm intrigued to see how that will continue on. Right now, they seem to be a little bit out of the picture, so I am not mad about that. I don't want them to return, but they will probably do that at some point. So overall, I am having an interesting time so far with this read, but I'm trusting my queen of fantasy, Robin Hobb, and I hope she will not disappoint. We will talk again when I have finished the book. So I have now finished reading Dragon Keeper, and I'm here to give you a little bit of an update on how it went. Now, this is definitely an interesting book because it is all set up. This is completely a setup book for this series. Nothing happens. There is no like plot really. There is nothing resolved by the end of the first book. We have barely taken our main characters and set them on their path and just seen kind of like a little bit of their first steps on this path. But if you expect any kind of like resolution at the end of book one or anything, a cliffhanger, anything, it's not. This book just stops. It's over. And it felt a little bit odd. It reminded me of when I read Game of Thrones for the first time because I read the German edition and I didn't know that the German books were cut in half. So when I finished the first book, I was very confused about it because it just felt like the book ended and there wasn't an ending, which is because it wasn't. And this is very much the same with Dragon Keeper. So while we do see a little bit of that journey that our characters take with these young dragons, it's not like we have reached anything. It's not like we've learned anything. It's just like really that we know, okay, these are our characters and this is what they're trying to do. And there are kind of like the obstacles. So while this is all set up, I still really enjoyed it. I mean, it is Robin Hobb and I'm just obsessed with her writing, especially the way she writes characters. I already have characters in this that I absolutely despise, that I think are dangerous, and honestly, that I always hope they will fall into the acid river because I don't like them. And these characters are usually men, so I think Robin Hobb has a very big talent of writing men that I'm scared of. And we do have quite a couple in this, but then we also have the good men. So it's not like all, men hating or anything like that. We do have the good guys as well. But in this one, even more than in the previous books, we really follow women. And we follow women that have very different chances in life and very different stations in life, because we do have basically one female dragon we follow a little bit. We have Thymara, who is kind of an outcast, and then we have Alice, who is more of a finer lady, but she's like really constrained by all the social rules that she's expected to live by. And through these different perspectives, we can also see how men are always kind of dangerous to these women and queens, I guess, even though the queens feel a little bit safer than the women do. But yeah, I have really enjoyed this introduction into this next chapter of the Rainbow Chronicles. I was worried, I said that when I started this vlog, that I wouldn't really care. And for the first half of the book, I definitely needed a little bit to get into things. But at this point, I'm like fully consumed. Like, I felt so sad when I finished the book just now, because it's always sad when I finish Robin Hobb book. I just wanted to keep going and going, and these books are not short, yeah? So I'm definitely already excited to get into book 2 as well and to see these journeys continue. However, I will take a little bit of a break because I am in the middle of a readathon right now, so I have to do some other reading for prompts, but as soon as that is finished, I will continue on with the Rainbow Chronicles and start book 2. And I expect that this will be like a complete continuation from this first book. And one thing I also wanted to mention, because I haven't talked about it yet, which I think is like really cute, we do have these little missives that the pigeon keepers send each other. So basically the mail system between these different cities, so mainly Jahork and Bingtown, I think, are the two that are communicating. They use pigeons to send their important mail, and the two people who are responsible, they will sometimes send each other like little notes, and it's like really sweet because these characters so far are not important at all for the story. It gives us a little bit of a feeling of the time, because we do have some time jumps at the beginning, and through these like little notes we can always see like how much time has passed. But then also it's just so adorable and so mundane. They will talk to each other about their pigeons and their feed and like illnesses, and they will exchange, you know, younger pigeons to keep the stock alive or whatever. So it's like really, really sweet, and I'm intrigued to see whether we will kind of like tie that into the story at all, or whether that is just like a cute little thing that Robin Hobb wanted to add to these books. I, for one, I really like it. I thought it was so cute. Yeah. That's just a little side note. So since we will be speaking about 4 books in this vlog, I'm trying to keep things short. So I think I'm done with my spoiler-free thoughts of the first book, and I want to go into a couple of spoilers for the people who have read the series already. I know it is well read and well loved. So if you haven't read this series yet, you can use the chapters to jump to my thoughts on the second book. That will be spoiler-free again. But if you have read the book, let's just compare notes for a second. So in this first book, I don't feel like you can really spoil anything, because like pretty much nothing happens. I think one thing is that Cedric is a character that I find interesting. I'm now even more intrigued because he licked the fucking dragon's blood. How icky. I was like, you know, he's on this ship always being like, oh, it's also dirty and it's also dirty and I hate it, and then he's licking the blood of a dragon. What do you mean? What do you mean? And I know it's supposed to be like, you know, these dragons, they have these magical appeal things and charisma and whatever, but still, Cedric, ew. So yeah, I thought that was so interesting, and I'm intrigued to see whether he now like has these dragon memories inside of him like always, or whether that's just a short like side effect, because obviously if you eat a dead dragon you will gain the memories, and it seems like that has happened to him. So that was just something at the end I was like, oh, my guy. I really try to like Cedric, but he makes it difficult. So basically, Cedric is the secret lover of Hest, and he came up with this whole idea that Hest should marry Elise, so he basically has this like heterosexual front, and they can be together in secret. Then they have this fight. Now Cedric has to go on this journey with Elise, and I really want to like Cedric, and I understand that he is in an abusive relationship with a power imbalance, and he doesn't really see it. Like, his whole plan of like getting the dragon scales and blood and whatever and selling it for a high price so he can build a life where he's financially not relying on Hest anymore, I support that completely. But then he still thinks that Hest will stay with him, and I'm like, my guy, that's not how it works. Hest is interested in you exactly because he has power over you, or he has more power than you. As soon as this like power imbalance is gone, Hest will not be interested because he is abusive. And so yeah, Cedric is a little bit of a frustrating character for me, that I want to support him, I want to like him, but also he is just yeah, a little bit like difficult to root for at the moment. So I'm very intrigued to see how the whole like blood thing will work out, because that could make him a more interesting character in the end. Maybe someone who gets out of his obsession to find a way to build this life with this man who is just not great at all. Then we have the whole like group of dragon keepers. Now that is a very tense situation as well, because we have this one guy, whatever his name is, Greft or something like that. He tries to establish himself as the leader of the group, and not everyone in the group agrees with that, and I don't agree with that. I think that man needs to be in like moral jail, because like the whole thing at the beginning when they start the journey, and he's like, you know, he has been on these like hunting expeditions, and after a couple of days, like people won't like each other anymore. And I'm like, yeah, you're the reason. You are the reason. You are the one who's starting to like pit people against each other and trying to come out on top all the time. When we have the situation with Thymara and her elk that she hunted, and he's just taking parts of it, I was so angry with her. I could totally see why she didn't want him to just go and take it, because you know the moment he would show up with the others, he would be like, I hunted that elk, you know? And he's just not that good. Like Thymara, she's that good. And so I was like very happy when when Robin Hobb did that little twist that he didn't even get the gratification of his lie, because the other hunters had gotten all the like water piggy things. So I was like, yeah, okay, that he deserved that. He deserved that nobody cared about his lying ass. But yeah, that guy really scares me. So this whole situation where Thymara was alone with him after she hunted the elk, it was so scary, and I am not very excited to see how that will all play out, because I think with a lot of like nasty characters in Robin Hobb books, they always get worse before things can get better. So I'm a bit worried about that whole situation. And then we have Elise and her little romantic tinglings with the captain of the boat, and I think it's really cute. I think that Elise definitely deserves some happiness. Now I think in general, Elise is the character that so far has had the most growth. She really has become someone that, while she is still like really afraid, she has these bursts of just like rage because of her situation. And for this whole book, I was kind of waiting for her to figure things out about Cedric a little bit more. That has not happened yet, so she doesn't know that he is secretly in love with Hast, and she also doesn't know that he is trying to get those dragon parts to sell them. So these will be 2 points that, if Elise finds them out, shit will get real very fast. And I'm intrigued to see how fast we will get that, like if it is dragged out over multiple books, or maybe things will happen in the second book. I can see that maybe by the end of the second book a lot of shit will go down. So yeah, I'm definitely intrigued about that. But I really like that Elise has this like little romantic feelings, and she still feels like she is this like highborn daughter, so she has to keep her vows and everything like that. I think at some point that will probably break down a little bit, but I also don't know how long this whole river journey situation is going to last, because I can see this being something that maybe lasts throughout the second book, but then something else happens, or it could really be like the whole series. But at some point, I feel like Hest has to show up again, because he's just that nasty bitch. You know, he's just going to come in at some point and destroy everything. So we'll see when that happens. Now, for the dragons, I must say I'm a little bit relieved, because I do like the dragons better than I thought I would. Now, we do have the main queen dragon. What's her name now? Centaura is her name. And she is annoying. She is like very similar to, you know, that other dragon, forgot the name for now, doesn't matter. But these are the kinds of dragons that get on my nerves very quickly. These are the kind of like, oh, I know I'm so much better than humans kind of dragons, and those are not for me. But apart from that, I think that the dragons, because they do have their disabilities and all of that, and some of them don't even have like a lot of the memories that they're supposed to have, they feel more like, I don't know, humble. And I do like the humble beasts, let's just say that. And yeah, I think the bond between the keepers and the dragons is something that I have an interest in, to see how those will grow. And because these dragons are not quite like the dragons from history, I think they can have more meaningful connections to these humans. And I am also intrigued to see how the whole like elderling thing will play out, because we have already some mentions of the physical changes of the dragon keepers being accelerated now, and that might mean that they start turning into elderlings as well. So that will be interesting. As I said, I don't want this video to end up being 7 hours long, so I think that's all I'm gonna say for now. And I had so much fun with this book. I can't wait to read more in this series, and then we'll talk again. So I'm now halfway through Dragonhaven, and I am back with an update. And I gotta be honest, this book very much continues on the same track as the first book in the series, which is a good thing, but also maybe something else could be nice. I don't know. So basically what I was hoping for the second book is that we get a little bit more plot going. And I can't say that I really got that. We do have something quite dramatic that happens in this first half of the book, and now our characters are all in a little bit of a survival mode. So we don't really have a lot of like, goal oriented, we are trying to achieve something, we're on a mission. It's more like, oh my God, we need to survive this. And so while it feels like there's more going on, it still doesn't feel like there's like a ton going on, if you know what I mean, because we're not really moving towards a goal more than we did in the first book. However, I'm still enjoying it. It's still Robin Hobb. It's still the realm of the Elderlings. I love this world so much. I love the way Robin Hobb writes her books so much. I think this one has kind of an interesting perspective as well, because these characters are hoping to kind of found their own city eventually. So we already see them trying to figure out how they will do that, and kind of like what the rules will be, and also who will be the leader. So we do have a little bit of like, it's not like political machinations, but there's definitely a bit of a struggle going on, and especially one person who is trying to assert themselves as the leader and as the person who can make the rules. We also see quite a bit of almost like Darwinist sexism in a way. Like, I don't really know how to explain it, but there's definitely some stuff that feels very, very icky to read about. But I think that Robin Hobb really isn't shying away from stuff like that, and so I'm intrigued to see where that will go. Now, we also have some queerness in this series, and I am liking the way this is developing right now. We do have two characters who are basically completely blind. We have Cedric and Arlise, and both of them just don't understand how the world works around them. It is so funny and hilarious in a way, but it's also getting a little bit frustrating, because I'm like, you guys, just open your eyes and see what's right in front of you. Like, what is going on? But I think it's no coincidence that these two are like Bingtown people, and they just have a little bit more trouble adjusting, because the Bingtown society is just so much more rigid, and there are so many more rules to social life and all of that. And so the Rainwilders, they're a little bit more chill about stuff, I guess. And so for them, maybe it's also like easier. But yeah, Cedric and Arlise, I hope at some point they will get it. They should get it. But we do have some development with Cedric's storyline that I very, very much like. And there was like some moments in the book where I was like, Cedric, you better do the right thing, my boy. And luckily, he decided to be the kind of character that I want him to be. So that's good for him. And the moment where we're at right now, like halfway through the book, like Cedric just kind of met another character. I can't really like spoil anything, you know? But like they have there's some sparks there, maybe. So I'm intrigued to see what will happen. So yeah, all of this to say, I'm still really enjoying the series and the second book. And I don't know what Robin Hobb puts in her books, but I just cannot get enough of them. So yeah, I'm having a great time, and I guess we'll talk again once I finish this book. So I have now finished Dragon Haven, and I'm here to talk about my experience a little bit. I will try to keep it shorter, but honestly, there is so much in this book that I love and that I want to talk about. So let me do my best. But yeah, I had a very good time with the second book in this little series. I definitely feel like the first and the second book make like one arc, like one story. They definitely belong together, and it doesn't make a lot of sense reading one without the other, because yeah, the first book, it's just build up for this second book, and that's also just build up for the rest of the series. So I'm giving Dragon Haven 4 stars as well. I did really enjoy it. I think for now, this series does not have this signature move where Robin Hobb will rip out your heart and trample on it. So far I'm liking that. It makes the book a little bit easier to consume. And it's not that there isn't like sad stuff happening, because there definitely is. And I would recommend looking up some content warnings for this series, especially for this one, because there is some like pregnancy related stuff in this book that might be triggering for people. But yeah, I had a good time reading this one, and I feel like we just have our characters and we see them grow. We see them just make their way through this jungle, growing together, but like individually growing as well. I think that we see that especially for Thymara in this one, and I absolutely loved her character in this book because she is very wise and very smart, and that's usually what I like in a character. And we do have some discussions in this book that almost remind me of like the manosphere in a way. There is a very reductionist view of the women in this book that is introduced, and I just love how Thymara is like standing up against that for the whole time. Like there is no moment when she really wavers in that, even though some of these characters have such weird expectations to how she should behave, or like what they're owed in a way, or what they have a right to. And so I love that Thymara is just unapologetically looking out for herself and no one else. And she's not letting other people tell her what she should be doing or what her place should be or anything like that. So I really love that. And I think that you can just totally see how she was raised by her father to be independent and capable and smart, and how that is helping her now navigate this completely new situation. And it's not only that the other keepers are having some weird expectations that Thymara is not happy to comply with, it's also the dragons. Because Centaura is, yeah, she is like very annoying. I really don't like her, and I think like last year, no, 2 years ago now, which is also crazy, I read Ninth Reign and I read the Life Ship books, and both of those have dragons that I just got very annoyed with. And so now we're going back and we're having Centaura, and I'm like, I just want to read dragon books where the dragons are not like bitchy queens, because I have this cat right here that is trying to sabotage my video. She will probably try to stop my recording the audio or something like that in a second. And so I really don't like reading about dragons that are as bitchy as my cat is. Let's just say it like that. Yeah, Santara is not my favorite dragon, but I like that we have the other ones. And I think that we have like interesting dynamics going on with that without like going into too much detail there. Then we have Alisa's story, which unfolds further. I don't want to say too much about that. I do like the direction that Arlise is going on, but it also feels like she's not quite so important for this part of the story. She is more of a like background character, and it is nice to see what happens to her and what kind of decisions she makes, but it feels more important what is going on with Cedric in this particular book. And that is the part that I really liked. I really like Cedric's development and the choices that he made in this book. And I like that because of Cedric, we do get this perspective in the book. And it's not only Cedric, there is some other stuff going on, but I don't want to spoil anything, but we do definitely have much more of a gay perspective in this series, like even more than we had in Tawny Man. And I'm very, very happy about that because, yeah, when you consider when the books were written, I don't think it was like so common that you have gay characters in your epic fantasy books. So I very much appreciate that. And I think that especially with Cedric, we just see him as such a complex character, and you can totally understand why the decisions he made that have not been so great, why he does that. Like, yeah, we definitely do more of a deep dive into his character, and I really enjoyed seeing that, and I'm glad that we worked it out in that way in this book. So yeah, I like the character development. I like the journey continuing on. I think that, you know, there is like something happening a little bit more dramatic at the beginning of the book that I talked about in my last update, but it's not like a lot of plot is happening in this one. But because we are like getting so close to these characters, I was not bored a single moment of this book. There were some things that happened in this that I was actually a little bit shocked by because I did not expect them to happen in the second book. Like, those were things I was anticipating for like some point of the series, but not like the second book. So that was quite fun. And yeah, just overall, I really love these characters and I love following their journey. And so I'm already very happy to soon read book 3. We also do get this little side story with the bird keepers. And I don't want to say too much about it, but it's just adorable. It's just so cute. And it is such a genius way to include like more outside stuff in the story that our characters can't know about because they are so secluded from everyone. But yeah, I love that it's not just a device to let us know a couple of things about like what's going on outside of the rain wilds, but they do get their own little journey, and it's like so cute, and I love that. Okay, so now that I have already talked about so much already, let's talk a few spoilers. If you have not read this book yet, please use the chapters to jump to my spoiler-free review of the third book. But if you have read this, let's discuss just a tiny little bit. And I want to try to keep this short because we do have 4 books to go through. But yeah, one of the things that I absolutely did not see coming in this book already, if we start at the end of the book, is that we actually did find Kelsingra, and I hadn't thought that would happen in the second book. It does make kind of sense because if you consider the first and the second book to be like one arc, and then probably the third and the fourth book will be more about like building up this dragon city again, it makes total sense. But like, I was a little bit surprised when we found Kelsingra by the end, but I'm also, yeah, very intrigued to see how that will continue on now. Now, the one thing that made me very, very happy is that Rapskull and Hebe weren't actually lost. For the whole of this book, I was convinced that they would show up again because we did have most of the dragons and all of that accounted for, and we just never saw even a hint of Hebe or Rapskull that they would have passed away or anything like that. So I was like so sure that they would show up again. And I was very happy that I was correct, because I do like them a lot. And especially because they have progressed so much more than the other characters. And it is part luck, because they just found a very good spot to kind of get stronger together and for Hebe to get stronger. But also because Rapskull is such a optimistic character. Like from the first moment he was trying to help Hebe learn how to fly, and everyone else was like, what are you doing? It's never going to work. But he was like, yeah, it's never going to work if we're not trying. So I love that. I wish I had a little bit more Rapskull inside of me. I'm just such a pessimist. So yeah, I loved him, and I'm so glad that he wasn't lost. Obviously, that was the catalyst for a lot of what's going on with Thymara and the whole like, you need to pick a man kind of situation. I think a lot of the Gen Z girlies should read the series and be more like Thymara, because she's just like, no, not gonna do it. Makes no sense. Not gonna do it. And I love that about her. I love that so much. I was honestly quite sad about Tats, because I did like him as a character, but he just, I mean, those are teenagers. I try to understand. But the way that he just thought with his loins instead of his brain in some of those conversations made me really sad, because at the beginning of the first book, the relationship they have is just very cute and precious. And you can tell very early on that Tats does really like Thymara, but then it's all about like, you know, when he's like, oh, you let me kiss you, but then you don't let me go further. And like, that's such a tease. And I don't know, that just really disappointed me in this character. And I mean, realistically, I was a teenager around the time when this book was written. So I guess, because of that, I feel a little bit of a connection there as well. And I just feel like I had like boys that I was dating as a teenager that just never were that way. You know, they when I said I only wanted to kiss and maybe touch a little, they were okay with that. Like maybe they would make like self-deprecating remarks afterwards that is like really hard for them, but it would never be put into like that pressure as Tats does it in this book. So for me, yeah, I was like really disappointed with him, and I was like, just grow up. Just grow up. If you really like her, like he's like, if you really like me, then you let me have sex with you. And then Tamara was like, yeah, but if you really like me, you just respect what I want. Ah, okay. So yeah, those were some interesting conversations, but I think it is important, and I think the sad thing for me is that now it just feels more relevant again, because we do have this growing manosphere that sometimes use like very similar thoughts to what Greft brought into this group, that like every female has to be accounted for and has to have a man, and they may choose, but if they don't choose like early enough, then their choices won't be respected anymore by the men, and they will fight it out amongst each other and stuff like that. It's just so gross. It is so gross. And in that regard, I think, sadly, 20 years after this was written, it is again very timely. And that is sad. It's sad. I'm sorry I'm laughing. It's sad. So yeah, we have that whole discussion. And as I said, I just absolutely love how Thymara is just standing up for herself. And she's like, no, I make my own decisions. And we have this link because Thymara does consider the way that Greft is saying, hey, we don't need to adhere to any of the old rules anymore. And so Thymara has a little bit of a struggle with that. And you could say, well, that's a very conservative view to be like, I don't want to give up all those rules, even though they are put upon me, and I didn't really have any choosing in them. However, Thymara also considers the reasons why some of these rules exist. And I think like the truth obviously would be somewhere in the middle. And we see that when Dirt, I think, when she loses her pregnancy, and we have this whole scene with the older woman who is basically telling them how to like ethically try to have a child, and how that involves more than just having sex with random guys and stuff. So I think that, it's not that these rain wild girls should never have children, but for them it is still very dangerous. And I think, I like how Robin Hobb tries to have nuance in this discussion. It's not just like, oh, those rules, they weren't made with their consent, so now they can throw them out the window. No, they had like actual reasons for some of the rules, which doesn't make all the rules correct, but you should still consider why those reasons, or like why those rules were in place, like what were the reasons for that, and take it into consideration before you completely throw them out as well. So I like that we have a little bit of nuance with that whole discussion. And it was obviously a very, very sad scene as well. And I'm intrigued to see how how Jared will develop as a character as well. And then we have the whole Cedric situation, and I don't want to say too much more about that. I really like his development in this book. At the end of the first book, I think it is, when he licks the blood, and I was like, boy, what are you doing? That is so gross. But because of that, he now can understand his dragon, and they do form a bond, which is very beautiful. And I think that Cedric just had to unlearn so much, because similar to Arlise, he was in an unhealthy relationship where his own, he wasn't really respected as a person, basically. So he had to unlearn that very much. And I think it's just so beautiful to see. Like, I love Carson. Carson is so great. He's such a fantastic character, and to see Cedric and Carson bond and fall in love with each other is so beautiful, and I'm so thankful we're getting those parts. And I think that, these two men, they're like so different, but they can meet on a human level, and then they can start to grow closer. And I just love how Carson is so understanding of Cedric. In a way, he takes him the way he is, and he loves him for the kind of human being that Cedric is, but he also doesn't let him off the hook too easily. So when he learns about the whole past story, he still tells Cedric that he has to go and he has to confess to Arlise and tell her everything. And I think that is so beautiful, because like Carson really inspires Cedric to be a better person, not just to be the amazing Cedric that is somewhere inside of him, but to actually show that version of himself to the world too. And yeah, I loved all about that, and I'm so happy they're a couple, and I hope that will stay this way. We do also have a little bit of queerness going on with I think it's the nephew of Carson and one of the keepers, so I'm glad that we get even more of that representation and not just like one single character, so that's really great. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that Greft died, and that was something I also didn't see coming for the second book, because I thought he would like stir up shit a lot longer than he actually did. I think the whole like turning point of that came very early, and I wasn't really expecting that when he tried to force his dragon to give him blood. I think we missed out a little bit on how bad Greft was doing physically, and he was so scared of dying that he wanted the blood to survive. Now, I think Greft is a very interesting character because he is kind of an asshole. Like, from the first moment, he is kind of an asshole, and I think it's so interesting because when he dies, you still feel bad for him, and Robin Hobb does such a great job of making him like a real person that you still can feel bad about, even though you also know that he's an asshole. And I think his whole thing, he just feels like he deserved so much better. And part of that is because he is a man. And inherently, that is not wrong. Like, he did deserve better. Thymara also deserved better. Like, all of these kids deserved better. But Greft always thinks that he was wronged the most. And the reason for that is that he is a man. And he thinks because of that, he should have all the privileges. And so he is walking this line where you're like, I want to feel for you because you really have been treated so badly. But also, you think so highly of yourself, and there's no reason for that. So I think he was such a fascinating character. And yeah, I am kind of glad he's gone because I really didn't like how he was, influencing all these teenagers. But also, like, in the end, he did deserve better. He did. And I think now that I have talked for 20 minutes, I will let you go. This video is going to be hours long, and I'm so sorry. And I hope you just really, really love Robin Hobb if you're watching this and you're not bored. Hi, this is Editing Kitty right now. I have just realized how long this vlog is gonna be. So I'm cutting it into 2 parts. You have now successfully watched part 1, and part 2 will be up in a couple of days. I'm really sorry. I was so chatty, and yeah, I don't want to give you a 2-hour vlog. That's just not going to happen. You'll have to watch it in 2 parts. So if you have been watching until this moment, then thank you so much. As I said, part 2 will be up very soon, and I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like, that makes me very happy. And also, feel free to comment your thoughts down below. Have you read these books, or do you want to maybe now? I would love to hear all about it, but make sure if you're talking spoilers to mark that in your comment and hit enter a couple of times so no one gets spoiled by accident. But yeah, I would love to chat to you about this series, and as I said, more is to come.